match pairs is deciding, is this a two-sample test or is this a match pair test? So today we're going to be focusing on how do you tell the difference between those two. And then on Thursday and Friday we'll get into actually doing the inference procedures with it. But first we need to know which one is it. So independent, this is what we did that we just took a quiz over. Okay, the independent is two separate groups. So this is different samples. And these different samples are unrelated. When we talk about paired, we're going to talk about related things. So these are related. So there's a reason we're pairing them. So it could be they are the same subjects. So that's like what we saw in our warm-up, where we were talking about the same pigs got both kinds of feed. So we were comparing how did they do with one food versus the other. So it's the same subjects got both treatments, and we're comparing the outcomes. It could be, this is pretty common that they do a twin study. So one twin gets one treatment, the other twin gets the other, because they're saying biologically these are the same. Okay, they have the same things, so they should be very similar, so we can compare them to each other and look at how the treatment affected them. It could also be, this happens sometimes, a spousal study. Where they will take the spouses and they will, sometimes it'll be, they'll give them a questionnaire or something like that, and they look at how their responses compare to each other and see, do they match up? So that would be a paired study, because you're matching this spouse with their own spouse, not with somebody else's spouse. So this one, there has to be a reason that you're pairing this person from this sample to this person in the other sample. Or this data value from one to the data value in the other. So we're just going to look at a few of these examples and see, can we tell which one is which and why that is what we're picking. So on this first one, it says a hypothesis of ongoing clinical interest is that vitamin C prevents the common cold. In a study involving 20 volunteers, 10 are randomly assigned to receive vitamin C capsules, and 10 are randomly assigned to receive placebo capsules. The number of colds over a 12-month period is recorded. So we want to see, are these separate samples or are they related in some way? So what do we think here? Independent or paired? Independent, you're right. That one's frozen. Okay, for the next one, it says, a current topic of interest in ophthalmology is whether or not spherical refraction is different between the left and right eyes. To examine this issue, refraction is measured in both eyes of 17 people. So what do we think here? Is it paired or is it independent? I heard one response from up here. Anybody else have an idea? Is there a reason we would take this measure for the right eye and pair it to a measure in the left eye? Yeah, because it was the same person. The same people were measured for the right eye and the left eye. So I would take the right eye of this person and compare it to the left eye of the same person. So this is paired. So this would be dependent or paired. same people. So we're looking between the left and right eyes of these people. So we're pairing each person to themselves. Okay, first C. To determine whether cardiologists and pharmacists are equally knowledgeable about how nutrition and vitamin K affect anticoagulation therapy to prevent clotting, an investigator has 10 cardiologists and 10 pharmacists complete a questionnaire to measure what they know. She contacts the administrators at 10 hospitals and asks the administrator to select a cardiologist and a pharmacist at random from the hospital staff to complete the questionnaire. So, we have this group of cardiologists and this group of pharmacists. So, is there a reason to pair one of the cardiologists with a specific pharmacist? Somebody say no? No? So, this one, since it's the same hospital, we would pair the ones up that work at the same hospital together, because some hospitals may have special training for this specific thing where others do not. So we want to know, how do these people compare to each other? And since we know there's a reason to pair them because they work at the same hospital, we'll pair them up in that way. So this is actually dependent or paired. Do you see why this is something that's the tricky part, is figuring out if it's independent or dependent? Yeah. I'm telling you, don't feel bad if you're like, oh, I still don't know. It's okay, because this is the most challenging part. So don't worry if you're having trouble with it. That's okay. We'll get to this. All right, let's look at the last one. Every year, the students at Gossett High School take a physical fitness test during their gym class. One component of the test asks each subject to do as many push-ups as possible. This gym teacher wonders if there is a significant difference between the amount of push-ups for the genders on average. The coach has provided us the results of the test for one class of 30 students, 15 boys and 15 girls, to investigate this issue. So what are we thinking here? So we have, I heard a paired and I heard an independent. One of you is right. So we have to think. We have this classroom full of boys and girls. We have 15 of each. Is there a reason to pair up the third boy in this group with the fifth girl in this group? Is there a reason those would go together? Just because they're in the same class, but all 15 are in the same class with this 15. So there's not really a reason to take this boy and this girl and pair them. This girl and this boy and pair them. There's not a reason to do that, so this is actually independent. Do you see it, though, after talking through it? Kind of. But how would they know which one to pair with the other one? They could, since there's the same number of each one, they could pair them up, but how would you know how to pair them? There's not a logical reason for pairing, so that means they're independent. If these were like brothers and sisters, then you could do something like that, or somehow related. Or if you were talking about, if it were the same 15 girls or boys at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, then you could compare those by pairing. But we don't have a reason to say how to pair it. Good question. All right. So, on the inside, I'm going to give you guys some of these problems. I want you guys to discuss them in your groups and figure out which way it should be. We've looked at a few of them together. Do not get concerned if you can't figure it out. We're going to go over them together. So there are 8 different ones, and they have numbers written in here. So just put that in the blank. You're going to fill out this side, and then when we go over them together, you can fill out this other side over here. Once you finish, just trade with another table until you've done all 8. You can call me over to Rob if you got first. These work on at the moment. What's that? Either way. Are you guys done with that? Oh, it's just sorting it. See, this is sorting lowest to highest, and then push again and probably be highest to lowest. It's alphabetical.
Oh. Thank you.
Needs one because you're going to determine, because you may not agree with your group on what one of these is. So, for each one, I want us to hold up either independent or paired, depending on if we think, whichever one we think that one is representative of. So, for the first one with the defective chips, what do we think about this one? Okay. So number one, for somebody that said independent, why do you think independent? You don't remember? Let me put it back up so you can kind of remember. So this is where you had for each hour, these are the ones that were made in each oven. Okay. Since they have to melt them together. Okay, what about for somebody that said paired? Why did you pair? She doesn't understand.
It's comparing oven A to oven B.
Good. So this one should be paired because you're comparing what happened and you know that these were the same hour. So it may be that at the beginning of the day in the first hour, it is different in both ovens than it would be at the end of the day at the last hour of the day. So it could be that the ovens just react differently or the computer chips react differently after the oven has been on a while. So you want to pair them up for the same hour. So this one should be paired. So as we're going through these, if you want to make a note to yourself about why or things to watch for or make sure I remember this, then you have a space over here for each one to do that. So that one should be paired. This next one was the daycare one, where we looked at a group of children in daycare. Some were assigned to play outside, some were assigned to play inside. So what did you think about this one? Paired or independent? Hold up what you think it is. Okay, so this one should be independent. Because we don't know that these two children should be paired with each other. We just know all of these kids played inside, all of these played outside. So we don't need to pair one child to another child. They look like it in the table. I agree. And they do that sometimes, and it can throw you off. It can make you think it's paired when there's really not a reason to pair it. Okay. So that one's paired. Here we're talking about the length of fish at two different stores. So this is number 3, the length of fish at two different stores. Okay. So this one should be independent. First of all, when we see two different sample sizes, we can't pair them because somebody's going to get left out of a pair. So they have to have the same sample size to even consider pairing. So when you see something like this, you can know automatically independent. Okay? So that one should be independent. Number 4, this was looking at the price people get whenever they buy a car, and they're comparing men and women and what kind of deal did they get when they purchased their car. It looks like I didn't see anything from back here. This is number 4. This one should be paired. Because for each car model, we're looking at men and women for that same car model and comparing the prices that they were able to negotiate. So this should be paired. Okay, here, this is number 5. This is looking at people had been asked these questions and then they were trained and retested on those same skills. What would we do here? Paired or independent? This should be paired because it's the same people that were tested and retested. So when you see that tested and retested and it's the same one, that's going to be paired. Okay, number 6. Now we're comparing students and teachers and the amount of time difference on their watch from what is the accurate time. Thank you. Good job, everybody got that one. Independence, good job. And now we're looking at 2 different ways of testing for a bacteria on meat. So we're trying to figure out if there's a difference between the 2 different ways of testing. Good job. This one is paired because they're testing both on the same piece of meat. So they're measuring. These are both on the same piece of meat. These are on the same piece of meat, and so on. Paired is the way to go. Look at my number 8. Okay, number 8. Sorry, this is on the orange paper. It doesn't show up very well. Where I put my one. Oh, here. I found it. Okay, so this is looking at group A, which got a placebo, and group B, which got a placebo or a cholesterol drug. Okay, so this one should be independent because we're just taking this group of people and we're randomly assigning them to each of these 2 groups and measuring the results. Okay. So does this help a little to look at them like this? Hopefully. Okay, so like I say, there was a place over here for you to write notes, and then here at the bottom, you can kind of summarize, okay, what can I do to remind myself of how to tell the difference on these? So you can kind of fill this in, or if we want to look at it together, we can do that. Whatever works for you guys. So some things that I might look for to differentiate how were treatments assigned. For instance, did everybody get one treatment and then everybody switched to the other treatment? Was that how they did it? If so, that's probably a pair. Was it that there was one group of subjects and they were randomly assigned to each treatment and then they compared results? Then that's going to be independent. So how the treatments were assigned is going to be a good clue. Another thing you can look at is how were subjects randomly selected. So, for example, did they randomly select siblings, pairs of siblings? Did they randomly select sets of twins? Did they randomly select, different classrooms and they sampled 2 people from each classroom? If they randomly selected groups and then assigned the treatments within those groups, that's going to be pairing. If they did not do that, if they randomly selected individual subjects and then assigned them to treatments, that's going to be independent. Okay, so you can look at these 2 things. To me, almost always will tell you which one it is. Okay, questions on that part? Okay. So, let's go ahead and look over here at our null and alternative hypothesis, because our hypotheses are written differently for these 2. So, if we are looking at independent, The test we use for independent, if they're means, for instance, would be a 2-sample t-test. You guys know how to do this because we already took a quiz over it. If you're writing out hypotheses, then it's going to be the two means are equal, and then somehow there's an inequality. Less than, greater than, or not equal to mean 2. So that's going to be if it's a 2-sample test. If it is paired, then we identify this as a paired t-test. And our hypothesis is the difference is 0. So we're finding differences and then finding the mean. Here we were finding means and then comparing those to each other. Okay. Our HA is going to be that mean of the differences is something other than 0. And again, those subscripts that we choose can be whatever makes sense to you in terms of the problem. You just want to make sure you're defining what that parameter is so that somebody reading through it will know which group you're talking about. Okay, so what we're going to do next, I have the set of problems that you're going to use for this at the bottom. So it's just going to describe the situations. You're going to decide, is each one of these paired or independent? And then write out what hypotheses you would use. So you're going to write it either in this if it's independent or over like this if it's paired. Okay? Yes. And then we'll go through and check after you guys finish. So as I come around and hand these out, if you'll have your cards stacked, then I'll pick those up as I'm handing these out.